Portal is a game which released back in 2007 and to this day remains one of the best games from the perspective of many. Nonetheless, this is a game that I've played many times, and honestly, while I do have a good time each and every time, I can only go through so many times before the solutions become memorized. Occasionally though, I will go through with some form of goal, such as taking down all the vital testing apparatus, or maybe simply going through as fast as I can manage. There is, however, one challenge I've never entirely managed to do without exploiting the game mechanics. So today I'm going to go through and answer the question, can you beat Portal without killing the turrets? Now, the rules of this challenge are fairly simple. Number 1, turrets must never become disabled or destroyed as the result of the player's actions. In other words, if a turret falls into the various pools of acid, is disintegrated in the various emancipation grills, or simply falls over and ends up shutting down, an earlier save file must be loaded before this occurred. Number 2, all test chambers and segments of gameplay must be completed. This means glitches shall not be abused in order to complete the challenge. And that's the entire rule set. The challenge will be completed upon GLaDOS, the AI running the facility, being destroyed. With all that in mind, let's get along with the challenge. The game starts off with very little difference from playing through the game normally, so I'll describe this a bit briefly. We wake up in a laboratory and are basically made to complete various test chambers and reach the end of the testing track. For the first 15 or so chambers, we learn a variety of methods in order to progress, from using the portal gun, avoiding pits of acid, and even using momentum to cross gaps. The challenge truly begins, however, when we reach test chamber 16, the test chamber which introduces turrets. Now, turrets operate on a fairly complex idea, so here's a simple demonstration. Yeah, if they see you, they're gonna straight up open fire without any sort of mercy. Ordinarily, one would just return the favor, treating them without mercy and simply knocking them over or disabling them somehow. But for our challenge, we're gonna need to get a bit more creative. My go-to method is pretty straightforward. Take the turret and shoot at the wall. At times, I maneuver with the portal gun, getting behind them easier, but this hallway will take a bit more creativity. There are 2 turrets placed on either side of the hallway, and while I can easily pull one out with my life, the other is a lot tougher. Try as I might, I get gunned down long before I can cross the hall. Ordinarily, you would just drop a box onto the helpless turret, but that's not gonna work, so what do we do now? Well, it's actually quite simple. We need a shield. Using these 2 boxes, which are ordinarily used to crush them, instead, we're going to use them to block the view of the turrets. By doing this, we can get close enough to introduce our friend here to the wall. Similarly, we can crouch down and get to this turret here, overcoming the first obstacle. Soon enough, we make it through the test chamber 16, and after resisting the urge to fizzle a turret with an emancipation grill, we can move on. Following this, test chamber 17 didn't feature any turrets, and instead the murder of an innocent cube. Test chamber 18, however, is a whole different beast. This chamber would start off like any other, being more open compared to others. Eventually, though, we come across a door to move on and a button far off from that door. This is where the difficulty comes in. The turrets in this room have been placed onto several elevator platforms above acid. The first 2 turrets are easy enough to handle as they are placed on a nearby wall, and so are easy enough to reach. The third is a little more difficult, however one can simply fling into the air, quickly pick this turret up, and place it by the wall. The final turret is by far the hardest to obtain. There's no easy way to reach it, and the high energy pellet you would normally use to knock it down just leads it into the acid. First I tried flinging from the wall over to the platform, however this proved fruitless and I simply hit my head on the side of it. So was that it then? Was the challenge a lost cause at this point? Nope. Despite this ordinarily resulting in the turret flying straight into the acid pit below, it is possible to line up a portal so that the turret is pushed toward the player. If you were to catch this turret in midair, it is possible to get the turret upright again and keep it alive. Unfortunately, the turret will crash within seconds if it is caught after falling into an error state. In other words, if you catch the turret too late, you will die long before you can get it back upright. Given this, it took many attempts to catch it before finally... Yes! I'd managed it! After a quick save, it was back down to the platform to get the turret back on its feet. After another set of reloads, finally, all the turrets were perfectly alive and out of the way. With that, the rest of the chamber is frankly a cakewalk. One fling later, I grabbed the cube, made my way back to the button. With that, it was one more lesson on momentum before we reached the end of test chamber 18. Moving on to the final chamber, number 19, this is another test not to feature any turrets. Of course, surprising to no one, the omniscient AI turns out to be evil and attempts to bake us instead of the cake. We decide this to be a terrible fate, and instead, proceed to the escape sequence. GLaDOS doesn't take too kindly to this, and eventually resorts to pulling out turrets in an effort to murder us. Our first counter with them features them behind a set of 3 doors. Each one opens one by one, so it's as simple as going in and grabbing them before they figure out what's happening. The last one can be a little bit tricky, but simply a well-placed portal gets them sorted as well. With that, we continue making our way through the dilapidated facility, finding no trace of anyone left. Eventually, we stumble upon a second kind of turret, which fires rockets. They also happen to be invincible, so just don't get shot. Keep going until eventually reaching a massive room, which is seemingly empty aside from all these suspiciously familiar doors. Sure enough, as soon as you go down, they all open to reveal an army of turrets. Now one can simply go to each one safely, face them toward the wall. However, I took a more risky idea. After flinging past the eyes of these trigger-happy robots, I would sprint forward to the final 2 turrets of the game. With these 2 turrets aimed at the wall, I would make my way higher and finally make my way to GLaDOS for one final battle. The 4 morality cores are incinerated, and with that, the challenge was finally concluded. All in all, this challenge showed me that despite the gameplay not being designed for such methods, generally there is a way around any given issue. If you enjoyed watching this, I would appreciate any feedback or advice on things I could do better. If you want to see more of this style of video, please don't forget to like and comment and just let me know. Anyway, with all of that in mind, have a grand day.